today at the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., where the court will be taking up 2 challenges to Texas's Heartbeat Act. Let's walk around and meet some people and hear what they have to say. Good morning. Do you mind if we ask you some questions about what's going on here today?
Our spokespeople are actually listening to the arguments right now.
Oh, okay.
But afterwards, I can bring them over here.
Sure. Okay. Great. Thank you. Excuse me, ma'am. Can we ask you some questions about what's going on here today?
No.
Excuse me. I'd love to talk to you about your costume. Forced pregnancy is enslavement. Do you mind explaining your sign to us a little bit?
Only if you tell us where you're from.
The Daily Signal. We're here in D.C.
What's the Daily Signal?
It's a news outlet here in D.C.
Are you, do you have a religious agenda?
A religious agenda? No, we're here to report the news.
Sorry, there can be some people. I would have questions.
You have.
What would you like to know?
Well, we want you to tell us about your signs. What's this? Forced pregnancy is enslavement. Why is it important for you to be here today?
Because I'm a young woman and I'm not in the position to have a baby, and if I happen to get pregnant, I want to be able to have a choice. I want to be able to continue my life the way I want it to go instead of having a child, ruining all my plans.
And so what objections do you have to Texas's heartbeat law?
Oh my God. You want to come in here?
We'd love to hear what you got. Have you guys explain it for our viewers?
In the United States, we have laws that are passed state by state, and then they catch on. Mississippi is riding on the coattails of this Texas abortion ban, and soon people who are against safe choice for not having forced pregnancy, they may actually force women to have forced pregnancies, and this is something in the United States they're desperately afraid of happening. Women are the only gender that can get pregnant, and so therefore this is a direct affront against women.
And so do you guys think there should be limits on abortion at any point? Do you think there should be limits on abortion at any point in a pregnancy?
No, because the law should not have anything to do with my body. If we can't have universal health care, why should they be talking about, putting bans on my body?
The American Medical Association is the governing body of medical professionals. So if there's any question about safety, that's not for us to answer. That goes to the medical professionals. The American Medical Association knows that abortion is safe, it is legal, and most importantly, it is 100% voluntary.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Good morning. We'd love to hear about this No Texas Taliban sign. Why don't you like Texas's heartbeat law?
Because it denies women the right to choose.
It denies women the right to choose. So, for break it down for our listeners, the law says that a doctor cannot perform an abortion after the unborn baby has a heartbeat. Do you think there should be, at any point, any kind of limit on abortion?
I don't. I think it's an individual choice, and it's a health care issue. It's not anything else. It's a health care issue.
And what do you think, ma'am?
I think I have a little bit of a different view, but I think that certainly within the first 2 trimesters, a woman should have the right to choose.
In the first trimester? That's really interesting, because a lot of people around here would be like, no limits at all. But you might support some limits after the first trimester?
I said the first 2 trimesters.
First 2 trimesters.
Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor, that's exactly
And what do you think of Texas's heartbeat law? Do you think that the heartbeat should be part of deciding when an abortion should happen?
No, I think that's kind of a random choice. Yeah.
So, why is it random?
because there's a lot of ways to define life, but I don't think that life begins with the heartbeat necessarily. It's more.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Great. All right, well, apparently a heartbeat does not define life. Excuse me, do you mind if we ask you some questions?
We're actually also not sort of press people.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry. Thank you, though.
Hey, how's it going? Can you show us your sign? Cool, so what does it say? Counter
Preborn violence.
All right, can you tell us a little about your sign?
Yeah, so my sign was made by Maria Oswald. She's a great pro-life graphic designer, and we made the sign in response to a lot of people who are in favor of their we made this sign in response to a lot of pro-choice imagery that shows, an empty uterus as if we really want to regulate people's bodies. But really the thing that we're upset about is not someone having a uterus, because most of us have a uterus, but the thing that we're upset about is the child inside being ignored and being dismembered and being poisoned and being killed.
So what issue do you specifically take with Texas's heartbeat law?
I do support the law. I don't think that it's perfect, but I think, private enforcement is something we see across a lot of different issues, like, climate law or environmental regulation uses a lot of private enforcement. And I think that people connecting and protecting their communities and neighborhoods is a good thing. We think that, abortion is a dual battle. It is the battle for supporting our communities and giving good resources, paid maternity leave, a sustainable environment, but it also has to do with protecting the preborn under law.
And I think you have a shadow. Has someone been following you around?
I don't know. They love me. They got to follow me around.
Can we ask you some questions? Absolutely. Sure. Can you tell us about your sign?
Yes, this is Bands Off Our Bodies. I'm dressed up as a butterfly because happy Halloween. There's nothing scarier than having our rights infringed upon. We've been handing out candy, just trying to bring some cheerful energy to the tense atmosphere today.
What do you think of her sign?
Counter preborn violence. Well, I think that, one of the things that's important to me in this anti-abortion argument is that organ donors, you can't force anybody to be an organ donor. So when people are forced to carry an abortion to term, even when it's not in their best medical interest, that's basically saying that a woman has less rights than a corpse, and that's really unacceptable to me, or any person who is pregnant has less rights than a corpse.
Well, what about that baby's rights?
So that baby is not fully born yet, and I don't think that, again, the woman, you can't force anybody to be an organ donor, and you can't be like, well, this person's going to die if you don't give them a liver. That's acceptable. So it's not acceptable to take away a woman's right to her own body and her own organs and her own health.
So is there any point where you would say that abortion should be banned?
I think not in the way that SB 8 is structured.
No point?
Banned? I don't know that banned is the right word.
Any point that abortion should be limited?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
What if the baby can survive outside the womb?
If the baby can survive outside the womb? I don't know. So the thing is...
Yeah, go for it.
Would you support regulations like health and safety regulations, like making hallways wide enough for gurneys or regulating self-managed abortions?
Sure.
Did you hear my question?
Question?
I said, would she support regulating health and safety guidelines like making hallways wide enough for gurneys to get into abortion facilities, or for regulating self-managed abortions?
I don't think she wanted to answer that. Okay.
It's because they just had a case here recently called June Medical Services versus Rousseau, where they actually shot down every single health and safety guideline for abortion facilities, but then claim that it's healthcare even though they don't want to follow any of the health and safety guidelines.
After that. Well, thank you so much for chatting and for sticking around. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Do you need my contact?
Sure. Do you have a...
I don't have a card on me, but I can say my name.
Okay, yeah. What's your name?
I'm Kristen Turner, so KristinTurner, and I'm with the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising.
All right,
Thank you.
Hello. We'd love to talk to you about your shirt. What does it say? Abortion is healthcare?
Abortion is healthcare, yeah.
What are you doing here today?
So I'm here just to support my right to choose and support other people's right to choose. And I believe that abortion is healthcare and that abortion is essential. I also happen to be one of Brett Kavanaugh's neighbors.
Oh, wow.
So, I have a very small platform, but I think it's important to use that. And so I often have a sign in my window just to let everyone know that, the neighborhood supports Roe v. Wade.
I was actually at his house recently, and a bunch of protesters came and kind of congregated outside. What do you think of that when people come and protest outside his house?
I think that's their right to do it. I choose to practice my activism in other ways, in smaller vigils where I invite people to come and talk about their abortion or talk about their experience. And we do that in front of his house, and we try to keep it small and intimate. Sometimes neighbors join us on their porches with a glass of wine, so they can listen as well. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me, they can, if they want to share their experience. We do it about once a week. And last week we had a doctor and an abortion provider come and share their experience with us, and it was very powerful.
I'd love to know, have you ever sat down with Kavanaugh himself and kind of gone back and forth about what you think about things?
No, but I did. I used to be a coach at the same school that he was a coach, and our daughters were in the same class. And I actually had to pull my daughter from the school because she was being physically and verbally assaulted by the other students in her class because of my views.
Oh, wow. So your daughter didn't like Kavanaugh's daughter? So why the other kids were ganging up on her?
Nope. His children are absolutely wonderful and lovely.
Yeah, okay. So you never kind of engage in dialogue with him in the neighborhood? Have you ever tried to do that?
No, I actually keep my distance. Yeah, and there's really no reason for us to engage. I don't think I'm going to change his mind.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today. All right. Hello. Oh, are you with Catholics for Choice? I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your organization.
I would be happy to. Thank you. So we represent and amplify the majority of Catholics in the United States who support abortion rights. 68% of Catholics in the U.S. do not want to see Roe versus Wade struck down, so we thought it was very important for us to be out here today.
What about, doesn't the Catholic Church teach that abortion is a crime against human life?
Well, the teaching on abortion has changed quite a bit over the centuries. As you know, the Catholic Church is an old institution. And the fact is, two of our major theologians, Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine, believed abortion was licit within the first trimester. So we're here to tell Catholics that it's more complicated, and the Church's teaching on that is more complicated.
That's so funny. I've never heard that in my life. I've heard my whole life that the Catholic Church teaches that abortion is a crime against human life, and that if you get one, you're excommunicated. And I have never heard that teaching changed. Did you hear that somewhere?
Yeah, I heard it in our history, Church's history, that the teaching has changed quite a bit.
Changed it?
Well, pope by pope, it would change.
Which pope?
Well, you have Sixtus V, who put it back into the teaching, but again, it changed over the centuries. If you're Catholic, you know who St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah. Well, Pope Francis said abortion is wrong and it kills innocent babies.
Well, he said, I believe he said it was homicide, to be clear. I don't think so. He was very clear about that. But what we're trying to invite the Catholic Church is into dialogue about whether or not it's a black or white issue.
So it kind of sounds like you guys want the Church to change teaching, but you haven't actually seen it change any teaching.
Well, not in the last several decades, no. But we live in hope that the Church will change on a number of issues having to do with sexuality and reproduction.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, as a Catholic, do you support Texas's Heartbeat Act?
No, we do not support it. We do not support it. And we're going back to those roots of our foundational theologians to say that this is, we call into question whether or not this can be considered a human life.
What did you say? You go back to the roots of founding theologians?
Yeah, and I'm going back to Aquinas and Augustine, who did not believe that was human life.
Aquinas and Augustine didn't believe that an unborn baby was human life? I've never heard this before.
I said it 3 times already in this interview, so you must have heard me say it a few minutes ago.
It's really interesting. Well, I would love if you could quote me from some passages or pull up anything right now that shows it.
It's in the history. It's in the history, and St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas are very clear. There is something called harmonization, and that's when, or they call it the quickening, which is that moment when the fetus shifts into become a human life. And they were very uncertain as to when that moment happened. And so we are drawing back on those theological roots in our own thinking. We also know that the Catholic Church supports the right to individual conscience. So,
I mean, this is all very interesting, but the Catholic Church is very firm on its stance on abortion, so I don't know if you're particularly in line with it.
Well, there's a lot of issues in which the majority of Catholics are not in line with it, and the reality is the convictions of the faithful, the convictions of the laity are considered a very important resource as the Church's doctrine develops, and we're asking the magisterium to listen to the magisterium of the laity and the sense of the faithful
and change doctrine
to transform doctrine.
Well, I would love to hear a little more about Texas's abortion law. Do you think at any point abortion should be limited?
I think that we should always have that guaranteed right to freedom and to freedom to make those choices. It is extremely rare to have a late-term abortion, and when people do have to have those late-term abortions, the circumstances are usually extremely catastrophic. And I want Catholics to understand that and understand the situations that those women and those families find themselves in when they have to make those decisions. And I think that Catholics who are anti-choice are not listening to people who have had abortions and not listening to the human toll of the situations in which people have to make that choice.
Okay, so final question. Do you agree with what Pope Francis has said about abortion?
I do not agree with him on that, but there's a number of issues I don't agree with him on. And I know there's a number of right-wing Catholics who don't agree with a lot of what Pope Francis is saying. So,
well, thank you. Have a great day. All right. Philip, do we want to cut off now?